Okay. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, December 8th, and you're watching the Norfolk Conservation Commission. We're live in Town Hall, but also we're available on Zoom. If you go to the town website, you can get the connection and zoom in on us, and we've got a camera in front of us, or a monitor in front of us, so we can see you. So the first thing on our agenda tonight is 0 Macarthur Avenue. And it's been continued, and they wanted to continue again until February of 2022.
I have it in January for Macarthur.
I have your notes that says continue to 2/9 meeting.
So with my,
I know, but I'm looking at her
Yep.
cheat sheet.
Yeah, that was. Don't cheat with the sheet. That was the old cheat sheet.
Okay, so the January one,
Yes.
ma'am?
here, I'll share my new cheat sheet with you because Al doesn't like this year.
Okay, thank you.
So,
No, she's got written notes on it.
oh, this one here.
She's got written notes.
Okay, oh, shh, don't.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to continue 0 Macarthur Avenue until January 12th,
At what time?
7 o'clock.
I make a motion to continue 0 MacArthur Avenue, NOI 240-0641 to 1/12/22 at 7 p.m.
Oh, 642. You said 641.
That's what's written here.
Oh, so 641. Oh, 642.
Depends on which note you look at. This one's 642,
Uh-oh,
this
let's
one's
confirm.
641.
Okay,
Oh,
you're right.
I got 641 as well.
Anybody got 3?
No.
Janet?
I'll run and, wait a minute. Let me run and get my folder.
Okay, please.
Yes, sir.
Let's just look at them. You're probably on the notes from last week. The minutes that we just got. So it says 640 on last month's minutes.
640. So we
Sorry,
got
that's
012,
Yeah, no, it's 641.
641.
the October meeting has it as 641.
Yeah, 641.
Okay. I have it right, though.
That's right.
You're not a continuation.
Nope.
Hey, Emery. What are you here for? For which one? Oh. That's not your house, is it?
642.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, then,
642.
if it's 642, then we need to change
Minutes.
minutes from last month, because they're listed as 641 for October minutes. Or November, whatever.
Macarthur, right, 642. Yeah, I get
For the November minutes, it's listed as 240-0641.
Okay, so we have to correct that. When we get to minutes. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so I will accept a motion to continue 240-0642 until January 12th at 7 o'clock.
I make a motion.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Complete. Okay, 5 Hanover Street. Is there somebody here for 5 Hanover Street? That would be you, okay. Notice of intent. Did you meet with ZBA?
I haven't really been a whole big part of this. Glad they filed the NOI, but they have met with ZBA
Yep,
and, that's, as far as I know, that's where they're at right now.
okay, and they're looking to purchase 5 to complete the
No, they had purchased.
5, oh, okay.
Yeah, they had purchased 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah, but they didn't have enough room to make anything work, so now
Yeah.
that they've picked up 1, they're gonna see what they can do.
okay.
Can we continue it for 2 months, or do we have to continue it for 1 month?
As long as you give a specific date, that's fine.
We can do it for February 9th at 7 o'clock. We'll start them off. So I'll entertain a motion for 240-0640 to continue.
Al Finney, so moved.
Is there a second?
Jim Olson, second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes, so that goes to the February meeting. Oh, boy. Don't like that. Okay, 7:05, we're right on time here. 11 Leland, notice of intent, septic update. What's going on? Anybody here for Leland? You too? Okay. Is everything in order for,
Yeah, we didn't have the DEP file number at
Yeah.
the last meeting, and we had it the following day.
yeah. Yeah, we're waiting for a number of them.
They came in, we got them today.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, yes,
All right, so all clear on your part, Janet?
yes, sir.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to issue a notice of intent for 240-0643 11 Leland Street.
Adam Zucker, so moved.
I think that would be an order of conditions.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, we need the order of conditions, so I will entertain a motion for order of conditions for 11 Leland Street.
Adam Zucker, so moved.
Second?
Do we have to close the meeting first to do the orders of conditions?
I believe the meeting was closed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is it?
you can close a meeting, you just can't
vote on
vote on it if you don't have the
DP.
DEP number.
Okay.
Al Finney, seconded.
Okay, any further discussion?
Excuse me, no one, because I did the attachment A, no one had any changes or comments
Questions?
with the conditions for that?
No, if I remember correctly, we went over the whole thing last meeting, right? And we're just waiting on the,
Actually, it was the meeting
DEP.
before, I think.
What's that?
Was it the last meeting or
For the one before, yeah.
and it was just, Janet, just a couple of, like, notes for where we were putting the,
Erosion controls. they
erosion
added-
controls,
Yeah.
yeah. That was the only thing that had to be updated.
Right.
You good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of releasing the order of conditions for 240-0643 11 Leland Street, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. The paperwork is ready, you can pick it up tomorrow. Correct, Janet?
Yes, after 9 a.m.
We need to sign.
Yes,
So you've got one more.
we need to sign it.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is 46 Fruit Street. We got the DEP number today, so that's good.
And I have that form ready.
To sign,
Yep,
okay. And everything's been flagged, everything's ready to go, correct?
yes.
Okay, then. I will entertain a motion for 46 Fruit Street for the ANRAD. Is there a second? Is there a first?
That's your first one. You need to close it first, right? No, you're hearing.
Is this still open?
That was your first hearing on that one.
Oh, okay. I'll take a motion to close 11 Leland Street.
Al Finney, so moved.
Forty-
No, Fruit Street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Fruit Street, yes.
Fruit Street.
So moved.
Close.
Second?
Maggie Rose, second.
Good. All right, any further discussion on this controversial 646? now that we got the paperwork and the minds right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. So that closes it. Now we have to issue it, correct? Janet?
Yes, and that is the bordering vegetated wetland
Yes.
is accurate as shown on the plan.
Yes. So, I'll to accept an order to issue it, correct?
The ANRAD?
The ANRAD.
Delphine, I make a motion to issue the ANRAD for number 240-06. Question mark, question mark.
Is there,
Is there,
Do you have that's not the updated one.
right here. 240-06, and I got two question
46.
marks. So,
0646?
0646. Oh, I see, it's, okay.
There's no, oh, here. Whoops, sorry. Okay, there's a second to that?
That was Maggie, yes.
Maggie, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. 166 Hemmingway Place, notice of intent for a pond treatment. Anybody here for that?
He was gonna be here as Zoom,
Okay.
wetland and waterways.
What's that?
Tomorrow, if you could, because we need to make copies of it and everything, so.
Yeah, all paperwork.
9 o'clock on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you letting,
Yes, you want me?
the consultants in, Elaine?
PDF of the issue?
Yeah, I had to
Yeah.
go out and I'm gonna come back in again. See what happens.
Did the guy come from,
Working on getting the Zoom.
oh, okay.
We're having technical difficulties here.
Oh, we need one other form, good, that'll be good to start.
Don't see him yet.
Sorry, just hold on.
While you're waiting, here's the order of conditions that need signing for 11 Leland Road.
Okay.
The cesspool, the septic.
I'm just letting him in, so.
You wanna sit here? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's Joe. Joe is co-host. He's gonna co-host and do a presentation.
You're the rookie.
Recording in progress.
Oh. Who's talking to?
The pressure is so bad.
That's good.
Joe, you there?
He's done.
See how he's,
So these, it's the same company doing 710, no, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're, doing,
he's got himself muted.
so basically it's.
Joe, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Hello.
Excellent. Okay, so we're talking about 166 Hemmingway Place.
Perfect. Oops. Yeah, I guess I'll share my screen if that's okay.
Please.
Perfect. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, again, my name is Joe Honorato. I'm with Water and Wetlands, representing the applicant, which is Trinity Stables. So, they're located at 166 Hemmingway Place, which, you know, is basically a horse farm. So they have horses there. They'd like to use this pond, you know, for horses to drink and use and things like that. They had some concerns about the property and the pond. We went and did a survey. You see the photo here. So what you have around basically the entire perimeter, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but at the forefront of the screen and then around to the left side of the pond, pretty much the entire perimeter is invasive water chestnut. And so that's obviously the most concerning. Other sites in Norfolk are managed for water chestnut control, Highland Lake. There's a DCR parcel there. I forget the name of it, but so I'm sure you're very, very familiar. But what water chestnut does is it'll cover the entire surface of that pond in no time. It drops, you know, dozens of seeds per plant annually. You then have a seed bed there, so it needs to be managed pretty much annually until you can deplete that seed bed. But otherwise, it'll continue to spread. You'll have virtually 100% cover of water chestnut. And what that does is it forms this monoculture, you know, understory that really doesn't allow beneficial native plants to grow. It can deplete dissolved oxygen. So it just wreaks havoc on the system, you know, especially if you deplete dissolved oxygen, you can have fish kills. So it really needs to be managed. You know, they have some other, you know, plants in there that we don't want to kill, but we want to manage. Water meal is one. If you've ever driven by, you know, a pond and you see this lime green cover, a lot of people think it's algae, but it's actually a small leafed aquatic plant, which is water meal. So they had that in there as well. And then around the perimeter, they had some invasive species that we noticed, woody invasive species that they wanted to manage, such as black locust and autumn olive. So basically an invasive species control project at this pond to improve the health. And so how are we going to do that, right? We did our alternatives analysis. You can read through the notice of intent. Water chestnut could be managed through mechanical harvesting. The challenge there is just access, disruption, cost, among other things. So we plan on taking the approach of spraying the water chestnut with a product called Clear Cast. So it's Amazamox is the active ingredient. So it's the same thing that's being used on the other ponds in town with water chestnut. They use it at the Delcart ponds in Franklin, so a variety of sites throughout the state, even the Nashua River, Sudbury River. So it's definitely effective. And so the water chestnut would be sprayed via a foliar spray prior to those seeds dropping, which is typically mid-August. And so the goal there is to deplete that seed bed and eventually get it down to a point where we can just go out there and hand pull the water chestnut. You know, if you can kind of count the number of plants, you know, or even a couple hundred plants, we can go out there and hand pull them to remove them. Unfortunately, we're past that point at this point. So hopefully after several years of treatments, we can get it down to a point where we can simply hand pull the water chestnut. And you've seen kind of this process in Highland Lake. And so we're getting there, you know, but it definitely takes several years as the seeds in the sediment are viable for more than a decade, potentially upwards of 15 years. The second thing in this pond that was somewhat concerning is they did have some water quality, which I'll scroll to here. And this pond is about an acre and a quarter. You can kind of see the overhead there. But the water quality, the most concerning thing is the phosphorus. So it's considered hyper-eutrophic. So basically about 0.03 milligrams per liter is considered to be eutrophic and can cause excess plant and algae growth. They were about 3 times that. So pretty concerning. So obviously it's one of those things where you're kind of prone to aquatic plant and algae problems if you have excess nutrients. And so, you know, you manage the plants, you manage the algae, but you've really never addressed the problem. So it's kind of reactive treatments, and they're part of any integrated program. but we also want to be proactive. And so to do that, we want to install a submersed aeration system. So not a fountain by any means, but essentially a very simple system that consists of an onshore compressor, very, very small compressor, nothing like you would, blow out your nail gun, your sprinklers with or use with nail guns, just a rocking piston compressor, about a 0.5 horsepower. And so that sits in a box, very small box, about the size of an end table on the shoreline, and it just feeds air into the pond through weighted hose to bottom diffuser discs. And so what that does is it mixes the water column, getting it oxygenated throughout. And so that oxygen really has a ton of benefits, including the breakdown of organic matter at the bottom, which helps with that nutrient control. Can also disrupt the cyanobacteria movement process. Cyanobacteria move vertically, so it disrupts that process. So just one of the best things you can do for your pond is an aeration system. It doesn't kill anything. It's not an algicide. It's not an herbicide, but really it's just providing oxygen throughout that water column, which is great for the fish, great for the wildlife, and also helps with nutrient control. The second piece to nutrient control is a spring pack treatment, so polyaluminum chloride, commonly used in drinking water treatment processes. And so what that does is it's essentially using aluminum to bind the phosphorus in the water column and settle that out at the sediment layer to try and strip that water column of that phosphorus to make it unavailable to the plants and the algae. So that's basically the proactive nature of it. We do have some other herbicides that, may be needed throughout the term of the program, but essentially everything is based on monitoring. So we'll be going out, we'll get the aeration system in, and then we'll go out there on a monthly basis. It's a biologist, licensed to apply aquatic herbicides, not a landscaper or anything like that. So the biologist will go on site monthly throughout that growing season, really inspect conditions real time and manage them, as needed. And that really eliminates the, under-treating or over-treating. So that's really the program, monitoring centric. We know we're going to need to control the water chestnut. We know we want to apply PAC in the spring to address the phosphorus. Any of those other treatments, say algicides, are always a wild card, especially harmful algae blooms that could be potentially toxic. So those would be managed on an as-needed basis, and that's why you see several other products there requested. So that's Trinity Stables in a nutshell. I welcome, any questions.
The first question I have is, do you know the source of the phosphorus? Or is it natural?
Yeah, so without really doing, a large watershed assessment, it's very, very difficult. Could it be that it's, previous agricultural lands? Possibly. I did run a watershed assessment. We use what's called USDA stream stats. The watershed is actually fairly small. But you're getting road runoff. There's trees around the pond, so you get leaf debris coming in. Obviously, part of our program always is educating the property owners on best management practices, things like that, fertilizer usage or lack thereof. And so, the homeowners there are very up on that and very on board to try and do what's best for the pond there. But yeah, it's tough to address. I mean, it's likely a variety of things, decaying plant matter, decaying plant material. Right, so each year we've had the water chestnut die off because it hasn't been managed. That's definitely not helping things. So a variety of sources, I would guess, but it's definitely elevated.
Okay. Elaine, can you lower the screen so we can see the blue table?
Yes.
Yep.
That's you.
That's
I'm
it.
sorry, Joe.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so these are more basic water quality parameters, right? And of course, water quality is always changing. So even at different times of the day, you may get different dissolved oxygen readings. Tends to be lower in the morning, and higher later in the afternoon. So nothing there was really out of whack. The pH was neutral. Alkalinity was about where we'd expect to see it in that area. Turbidity, you shoot for less than 5 NTU in drinking water, so we were there. Not that this is drinking water. So really nothing nothing too crazy. It was more so the nutrients that were alarming in this pond pertaining to water quality.
Okay. And how are you treating this? Chemically?
Yeah, so there's a few things, right? There's different kind of components, right? So there's the water chestnut, which we would treat with a product called Amazamox. Then there is the PAC, the polyaluminum fluoride, which again is commonly used in drinking water. So what that does is it binds the phosphorus, so it addresses, proactively addresses the phosphorus within the pond.
Okay. And do we have the MSDSs or no? Janet?
Not yet.
Yeah, if I didn't include those, I definitely will send them over.
If you would, please.
I'll have to check. Yep, absolutely. We were, I think we were at 100 pages, so I might not have included them on this one, just to kind of save on paper and files. So
Yeah, you can
And
send it
here,
over
just on
electronically,
screen.
right?
Yep, absolutely. And I think Janet can attest to anytime we use anything in a pond in Norfolk, we always send those MSDSs over ahead of time.
Yep.
She likes to have them in case anybody has any questions or anything like that. But I'll send those over right away for every product we're requesting.
Okay.
David,
Janet?
Joe, just so you know, because I keep a folder there, and I've got it marked there with the MSDS in case there's any issues. People can get to those sheets quickly, to have them on
Yep.
hand. Also, when you were talking about the biologists going out there monthly as needed, would they be treating at that time? Because normally, if you're using the chemicals, do you need to post it where it's kind of private property, or do people with horses go in there also? Do you need to?
Yeah. So the short answer is we go there monthly to monitor first and foremost. It's highly, highly, highly unlikely we'd be treating every visit out there. There's certain treatments that we know we're going to be conducting, like the water chestnut, which would be more of a July, August, the PAC, which would be May. Anything else would really be a wild card, right? So we go out, we monitor, and there's a substantial algae bloom that needs to be managed at the time. Second part to that question is, so we bring posters with us. For a larger lake like a Highland or a Mirror Lake, we pre-print those. So we go there with a planned treatment. We have the posters that are all printed. For smaller ponds like these, we keep what we would call blanks on hand. And we just fill in the product information and any restriction information, name of the pond, and we post typically just a couple of those around the shoreline, mainly for the homeowners, in this case, since it is private property. But we do post, one or two posters around the shoreline. And of course, the homeowner in this case would, always know we're coming as well. So.
Okay, and then one more question. When you're talking about hand pulling the water chestnuts, what are you doing with those water chestnuts when you take them out of there? Don't tell me you're stacking them right
so
next
we
to
have
the
a couple
pond.
of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So they'll definitely be removed from the buffer area. Typically, we have some composting sites we work with, and they get buried, several feet down. So.
Is this
But that's definitely
would this be on the,
several years away.
Is that on the person's property that you would be composting them?
Oh, absolutely not. No. We typically try and get them high and dry out of any sort of wetland or wetland buffer area. We definitely do not want those seeds to spread. So, no, they'd be removed from the premises completely. That's definitely several years away. The goal is to ultimately treat them, and what that does is it allows the plants to fall to the bottom without adding any viable seeds. So then eventually we'll deplete that seed bed because we've depleted that year's seeds without adding any more. So we kind of rinse and repeat that process until you can get it down to a level where they can reasonably be hand pulled. Unfortunately, probably 5-10 years ago, who knows, they were at a hand pulling level and they've just gotten past that point.
And the chemicals you're using are safe for animals?
Oh, 100%, yeah. So everything we use is approved for aquatics use, and typically in the parts per billion concentrations. So just to put that into context, a part per billion is about an ink drop in a water tanker, so just heavily, heavily diluted. But yeah, aquatics approved, safe for fish, safe for wildlife, of course, within label rates. So the label is the law in our case.
Okay.
And then any anytime we treat, right, there's an annual DEP permit that's required, the WMO4, which when I get that, I always send it to Janet as well, so she has that on file.
Okay. Questions? Tim?
Is there an application that you do with the state before the treatment?
Yeah, so that's what I just mentioned. So that's
Okay.
the WMO4 permit, and that's specific to herbicide and algicide usage. So it's basically a license to apply chemicals, and that's annual, and that gets filed with the state. And then they look at it, make sure that the products we use are registered within the state. They make sure we have a valid order of conditions, and they make sure the rates in which we want to apply are within label rates, and that the targets we're looking to target are on the product label of the product we want to use. So they're kind of just doing the fact checking and then issuing that permit on an annual basis.
And you've applied for that already?
No, so that's annual. We can't do it without an order of conditions in
Got
hand.
it.
So typically we obtain the order of conditions, say fall, winter, like we're in now.
Yep.
Ultimately a multiple year order of conditions, then we have it, and then we apply for our DEP permits in March. Typically send those to conservation so they have them on file. Treatments here, I think the earliest one would probably be like May with the PAC. So we apply for that permit in March, but it's about a 2-day turnaround typically, so it's more of a formality.
Okay.
How aggressive is the aeration system? And I'm asking that in comparison to you're planning on settling out the phosphorus to the bottom of the pond, and you're not going to dredge it. So how much of the pond is being aerated, and how aggressive is it?
Yep. So we've run calculations with the aeration manufacturers. So it's a sizing thing, right? So essentially what you see on the screen here, if you can still see my screen, is a single diffuser. And those can be controlled independently. But for this specific pond, based on the size, the depths, the contours of the pond, water volume, and the gallons per minute being moved from the aeration system, it's about a 5 diffuser system. So you essentially have one box on the shoreline with a compressor in it, and that feeds air to weighted hose to these bottom diffuser discs, which are almost like a kitchen, like the size of a kitchen plate, a dinner plate. So those just rest on the bottom, and you just see minor bubbles coming up from the surface, and they're all valved independently so that we can calibrate it so that they're all evenly distributed. So essentially, it'll turn the pond over, if you will. It'll aerate that entire pond once per day, and that's kind of the calculation that was delineated by the manufacturer, so properly sized to the pond.
Okay, so you're not concerned with putting anything back into suspension from settling it out and then sending the phosphorus back up, and the turbidity would obviously be, what do I want to say?
No,
Smaller?
absolutely not. It's kind of two different things. We'd probably shut the aeration system off just during the alum treatment. But what you see is it essentially the alum binds with the phosphorus. You start to see what's called a flock.
Yep.
It almost kind of looks like a milky type substance, and then that settles down the bottom.
Yep.
But aeration isn't going to stir things up or bring anything up or anything like that.
Okay.
It's really just mixing that water column. These diffusers aren't down into that muck layer or anything like that.
Okay.
Whereas, say, a fountain, right, sometimes fountains in shallow ponds can be sucking sediment and things like that. Of course, they'd be clogged in no time, but that's not that system. This is just putting bubbles in the water.
I think this is the first one in Norfolk, isn't it?
I don't think no.
Huh?
I've seen advertisements for this or.
Yeah, but no,
not
we
with-
haven't put any in
But not,
water places.
Well, I've seen floating aerators. This is something different to me
Yeah.
to see, so it's...
ooh, we'll see how it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's about the best thing you could do for really almost any water body, because dissolved oxygen is really the key to a variety of chain reactions, promoting beneficial bacteria, aerobic bacteria that really, helps with a lot of processes within a pond. So, we advocate for aeration whenever possible. And it's not the chemicals are bad, but it's a chemical-free, proactive strategy to improving water quality, water clarity, and just the fish love it,
Yeah.
So
Will the aeration stay in for permanent, or is it just a duration time frame, or?
Yeah, so great question. So I guess there's a few pieces there. So fountains, for instance, right, they have a motor that's in the water. Those need to be pulled out and put back in on an annual basis. So you put them in the spring, you pull them out in the fall. This system is designed to stay in place pretty much forever. Now, is it permanent? No, it could always be removed. I mean, we could go out there probably for a couple hours and remove it. So it's really not difficult to remove by any means. But the goal is that it would stay there. Now, would it be run year round? Probably not. You could run it, but typically we advise clients to just turn them off in the winter. So we usually say ice off to ice on. Of course, with global warming and things, ponds aren't even freezing much anymore. But you could run it in the winter, but what you have is open water or weak ice, which from a liability perspective, we typically just say shut them off in the winter. So March we flip the switch on. And call it November, December, we flip the switch off.
Who is controlling that? Which homeowner?
Yeah, I mean, so typically the homeowner does. We have some, we typically do the maintenance on these systems. Not that there's a lot, there's just an air filter. But yeah, sometimes we'll go just flip them off for people as well.
So 166 Hemmingway owns the pond?
Correct. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Jane Elias.
Yep.
Owns the pond, so they're there frequently. We met with them. Nice couple there.
Okay.
Whereas say like City Mills, which is up next. Not that we're proposing aeration there, but that's one of the that's a difficult one. Like who would be in charge of controlling that system and things like that? Would it be DPW? So those are all good questions, but in this case, it's all private, so they would just manage that.
Yeah, well, that was the reason. The aeration is a good thing, so don't get me wrong. That's why I'm asking, because they'll leave it on most of the year. I could see shutting it off in the winter, but if this thing is in place and it can be utilized, I'd recommend it would always be on, excluding winter time. So that's why I was just curious if it's there permanently.
It very well could be. Yeah, I mean, it very well could be.
Mm-hmm.
Our fear is always just that you'll have weak ice around the edge, and in the area of the diffusers, you'll have open water, which, typically wildlife love that. We have some ponds where you see ducks year round, even in the winter, and just those, they found that open water where they couldn't find it anywhere else because of the diffuser. And so wildlife can enjoy it. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm okay with it either way, as long as the client is, but.
Okay.
One question. Is just one of those aerators enough for the size of that pond? Because I think somewhere I read, is this the one where it's like 9 feet at the deep part? Would you be putting it in that deep part?
Yeah, so actually, and I misspoke before, it's actually 3 diffusers. So what you have is you have one system on the shoreline that's kind of powering everything, right? So that's kind of the brains of the operation, providing that air. And so those pump to 3 different locations within the ponds. But yeah, the deepest areas of the pond is where those diffusers will sit. So the bubbles come up in a V shape. And so if that V is sitting in, 2 feet of water, that V just stops. But if it's in 9 feet of water, it keeps going. So it was spec'd based on that 9-foot max depth and about a 4.5-foot average depth. So those 3 diffusers is a properly size system for this size pond, because it's only 1.25 acres.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do have a question about where you're going to be trenching and any erosion mitigation that we may need.
Yep. So this is a very minimal install, believe it or not. So they'll end up bringing electric near the pond, but not very close. Probably 20 feet or so from the pond is where they'll bring electric to. But very minimal. They'll just run 110 line. And then for our portion of the installation, these systems come with a pad that we just plop down, right? It's just a weighted pad. It's not concrete or anything like that. It's nothing prefab, no digging. The cabinet just sits right on top of that. It's kind of plug and play. System plugs in. Then down to the pond, all we have is weighted hose, right? And so the weighted hose just has air in it. It doesn't have water like an irrigation line, and it doesn't have electric, so there's no, it doesn't need to be buried per se. We typically just try and put it just below the surface just to cover it up. So typically we'll just take a flathead shovel and just kind of notch the ground and just shove it beneath the grass. So no actual digging close to the pond by any means. And then once it's in the pond, all, the diffusers and the weighted hose just sit on the bottom of the pond, so they're not buried or anything like that. So typically, there's no erosion, no runoff, or anything like that, because it's just so non-intrusive.
The only issue, Janet, would be, since they are in the 50-foot buffer, we just need that, maybe as part of the order of conditions, what type of trench and any mitigation, because we're going to have it.
We're not gonna do a trench.
No, up to, the electrical's 25 feet from the pond.
Yeah.
So the
Oh, that
50
trench?
to the 25-foot mark, there will be some sort of a trench. So being within 50 feet of the waterway, we're gonna have to include,
Yeah, there's about 25 feet there, they're gonna be in the 50-foot
Yeah,
buffer.
yeah, yeah.
we
So,
wanna make sure that we follow that, so then we have other people digging in the 0 to 50-foot mark, and we have hold them just as accountable.
yeah. I mean, it's only a 110 line, it's very, like,
Right.
probably a half-inch
You
height,
just
but
gotta
still,
make sure that
gotta
in
cover it.
orders of condition, that's, well, yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's fair. Yeah, that sounds fair to me.
So the
I mean, I think
compressor,
it's-
the
it's,
compressor is actually gonna be sitting 25 feet away from the pond, in that box.
Or
no?
or so. I mean, we definitely don't want it to flood out, right?
Right.
It's not
Yep.
like you want to put it right up on the pond's edge where if the water level raises or you get a big storm, that
Well,
thing can
that's-
flood
yes.
out. So,
Which I've
so
seen
typically
there.
it's like 15 to 25 feet from the pond's edge is typical.
Yes, on the roadside, the driveway side, I've seen that pond overflow and fill up probably 30, 25 feet away from the pond itself. I've seen it
Yep.
flood out, so. Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
We need to continue this.
Yes.
Oh, good.
We do?
We just got the number and it's gonna take a little bit to get that.
Yeah, we gotta put the paperwork together, so what I'll do is we'll continue it until, January,
Sure.
and then, we'll have all the paperwork ready, and you're not gonna do anything before then anyways, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it
Don't
would
need to do
typically be a
anything until
spring-
March?
Yeah, probably a March aeration installation, and then that first treatment would be the May pack treatment. So I always, like I told Janet earlier, we always try and file early. That way we have plenty of months to play with. So
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to continue 240-0646 until January 12th,
That's 644.
644. Where am I? Oh, 644, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, too many scribbles here. So we'll continue that until January 12th at 7:05. Yeah, I'll entertain that motion.
So said.
Second?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. So we'll pick it up in January on the 12th at 7:05. We'll talk to you then, Joe. Now,
perfect.
Talk to him on the next
but
one.
now we need to talk about City Mills Pond. Oh, we gotta close that issue.
That's right.
Next item.
Next item. Okay, City Mills Pond.
Perfect. So you're ready for me?
I am.
All right. So again, I'm Joe Honorato with Water and Wetlands. This time we're representing the applicant, who is the Norfolk Historical Commission. So it's a town project, and so we work with them on Highland Lake. As I mentioned in the previous hearing here. And so typically we've been working with Barbara Bartholomew, and she's had some concerns about City Mills Pond, which I'm sure most of you know. It's right on Main Street. You have that big factory across the road there. It's kind of a park-like setting. I believe it's, conservation land. There's walking trails, beautiful, beautiful place. But obviously the pond has some health issues, if you will. So we didn't have really any data. Barbara basically said, hey, how much is it going to cost to fix this, right? And so, of course, my first step is to explain the process in that, well, we need to file a notice of intent. We can't file a notice of intent without proper data. So we went out and did our own survey. So I'll share my screen again, if you don't mind.
Please.
So again, I just have, the notice of intent application, but the, picture's worth 1,000 words here. So what Barbara essentially called about is this, right? So what you see is the back is all wetland. So the pond used to be about 8 acres. Now it's about 6. So just drastic eutrophication, classic case, pond becoming a wetland, and it's going fast. And I actually did get a little tidbit of information from Janet earlier in regards to the fact that there's apparently no hydrants nearby, and this pond is a kind of a backup water source in the case of a fire. So in this case, hydraulic capacity is extremely important, right? We can't have a wetland. You can't draw water from a wetland. So we really do want to create open water and open water habitat for fish, for wildlife, and really just bring it back to health. And if nothing else, slow that eutrophication process. Especially whereas the entire rear side of the pond that's wetland, it's loaded with like purple loosestrife. There's some other invasives out there. So it's not even a healthy wetland back there. And so what you see here, if you look at the water portion of the pond, is up close at the forefront of the screen, you see lilies. Yeah, now lilies are a great species, right? They're not water chestnut. They're perfect to have, great cover, great habitat. But then you see kind of this cloudiness as you look out onto the water. You really don't see any nice, reflective water. You see something out there. And so what is that? It's plants. It's topped out plants. And so there's coontail, there's milfoil, just a variety of species. And so some are native. There was invasive milfoil at a lower density, but it's essentially topped out vegetation. So it's not good habitat. It's shading sunlight, so depleting dissolved oxygen. It's essentially just not healthy. And so we had to come up with a plan to manage the vegetation here. Unfortunately, Barbara's been a little bit difficult to reach, just due to things she's undergoing. So I kind of pulled together a plan, but we don't actually have a contract yet. So I kind of put 2 different approaches in here. Either way, they're going to be needed over the course of a multi-year term. So in an ideal world, what we would do is apply a product called Sonar. So not to be confused with Sonar Waves or anything like that. It's a brand name of a product made by Cipro. Active ingredient there is fluoridone. So the sell to that is it's approved in drinking water up to 150 parts per billion. Again, with the B, and we'd be treating, we'd be maintaining about 10 parts per billion. So a fresh what's allowed in actual drinking water. That's how safe this product is. And so Sonar, basically, you put the product into the water, you build that concentration up to that target, which here is to maintain about 10 parts per billion. And then we'd go back and bump or boost that concentration probably 2 times after that to essentially get a period of about 60 days of contact exposure time at that rate of 10 parts per billion. And so what that does is it basically is almost a reset, right? So it doesn't eliminate or decimate plants. It works very, very, very slowly. It's a systemic herbicide. It's rate specific. So those lilies you see in the forefront, they would be, I guess for lack of better words, dinged up the year of treatment, but they would bounce right back. And that's what we want, right? We want to get systemic control where we can to lower that plant biomass and lower herbicide usage in subsequent years, right? Kind of reset it, and then we can go into maintenance mode. So that's in an ideal world. The challenge with that is Sonar is more expensive. So if the town just simply doesn't have the budget for that, I put in option number 2, which is kind of spot treating with some different contact herbicides. Again, very safe for fish and wildlife, but it's more of a spot-specific approach to create some of that open water habitat. Typically with the contact herbicides, you won't get multi-year carryover control. Still some selectivity, especially in that we can spot treat certain areas, leave selective pockets of vegetation. The 2 contact herbicides we requested really won't impact lilies. So again, selectivity there. And so that's kind of the approach there. And then in subsequent years, we jump right into maintenance mode. And that may mean selective spot treatments on a smaller scale. It may even be dash. So sending if it's just, if it's pretty open, it may be nothing, right? It may just be monitoring in subsequent years and kind of dealing with anything as needed. Algae is, of course, always a wild card. We always put algicides on every notice of intent, but of course we only use them when they're needed. But potentially divers, I did put that as a possible strategy in subsequent years, so they can go down and actually dive and hand pull each strand of milfoil, and it gets put in a bag and hauled away. That may be years down the road, similar to Trinity Stables, where hand pulling is in the cards several years down the road. But for right now, it's at this point where it really needs more of a reset, definitely hands-on approach, and that includes several herbicides at this one. But again, very safe. Increase the hydraulic capacity for fire usage, and then create that open water habitat, because we still have the nice, the wetland areas surrounding it as well. So we'll have open water habitat and wetlands. I think I also put a couple of products to address the purple loosestrife, some of those invasives, because really what we don't want is a field of invasive species, right? We want healthy wetlands throughout the town. So those would be managed selectively, just, spot managed for just invasive species control in any of those wetland areas.
I think Barbara and the town will be using CPC funds for the
Correct.
treatment of these waterways. So, the money's there. It just has to be approved, or if it may already be approved.
I think it was approved in November, yeah.
Yeah, at the November town meeting. So, I think we're good to go in that area.
Joe, I got a question for you. I might be talking out of context here, but back in the day at Norton Reservoir, it just happens to come to mind, they had a machine like the harvester that did the water chestnut that would go in, and it was like a paddle wheel thing, and it just, I don't want to say tore up or dredged, but took all the weeds out, and then they got hauled away in a dump truck. Do they do that anymore, or is that something
So
they don't?
yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, it is still done. It is still part of aquatic management in the right scenario, right? So water chestnut, there is a benefit to doing that, specific to water chestnut. The whole goal is not so much to remove the plant, but to remove those seeds from the pond, right? Whereas with a pond like this, you're essentially just mowing the lawn, right? So that doesn't disturb the bottom. It's just a high-powered cutter with the paddle wheel, so it's called a mechanical harvester.
Yes.
And so what that does, it glides through the water, it cuts the vegetation, vegetation goes up a conveyor, goes to a back conveyor where it pulls up to the shore and offloads. So with that said, I guess one downside is, again, you're just mowing the lawn. So you spend all this money, roughly $2,000 per surface acre. So here we have about 6 acres of open water. You spend $12,000 just to cut it.
Yep.
And then you still got to dispose of it, right?
Yep.
And then it just comes right back. So within a month or two, you're back to the way it looked beforehand. So it's one of those that with these specific plants doesn't make a ton of sense. The other thing here is there's milfoil, and it really hasn't gotten all that bad yet. It was fairly low density. And so the last thing we want to do is spread milfoil, which spreads through fragmentation. So ultimately, if you're using high-powered equipment and things like that, you run that risk of fragments just being chopped up and spread around the pond, and now you've exacerbated that problem. So it is still used, just not applicable here.
Okay, because I'm just, what's the depth, or have you looked in the back of the pond there where it looks like it's almost land now, where it's wetlands? How is that going to be removed? By the chemicals over time?
Yeah, so we're definitely not going to bring a wetland back to a pond.
Right.
So essentially, in the rear of that photo where you see wetland, that will stay exactly as it is. So none of the
But shouldn't grow.
herbicides that we use will impact that.
But the wetland area shouldn't expand with the chemical treatment?
Well, that's exactly it, right? We're trying to slow that aging process of a pond, slow that eutrophication process, and not having that wetland expand, right? So we've already lost 2 acres out of 8, so we're going to try and maintain that 6 acres of open water habitat that we have. But once you have a wetland, it's a wetland. There's no reclaiming that. So I think the only thing that would occur in those wetland areas would be selective treatments just to manage invasive species like the purple loosestrife that's out there, to allow for nice beneficial native wetland species to recolonize before it gets taken over. But it'll stay a wetland.
Okay.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
We seem to be in the town from the time I've been on the commission, waiting to the portion that, exactly like this pond, we've lost 2 acres. Have you or your company gone to a town and said, all right, these are all your ponds. This is what we need to do to manage the pond so that we can go to the capital fund every year and maintain the pond so that they stay the same way now without having to wait till we get to a pond that's 50 or 75% covered with foliage of different varieties.
Yep.
And then we've increased the organic matter so much in the pond that we've really decimated.
Yeah.
And I think over the course of time, we would save money if we just said, all right, these 15 ponds or how many ever we have or bodies of water, this is what we want to do. This is going to be our annual budget. And I think over time, the budget would be less. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think it would be less. But the more important part is we'd be saving these ponds.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, you bring up an excellent point. And, it's one of those things that it's almost a mindset, right? It's a shift change, right? Because that has rarely been done in New England. You see it in like, communities down south where they have all those HOAs and things like that. But up here, it's a different mindset. But yeah, actually, there are towns that do that we work with. Canton is one that comes to mind. So Regan Milani, the conservation agent over there, we have several ponds in Canton, and she's adding more regularly. So, it wasn't all at once, right? It was 3 ponds, and she says, hey, can you take a look at this one, right? So if it's something the size of City Mills, we wouldn't really even charge for a survey. We just say, yeah, when we're in town, we'll throw a boat on the water, survey, figure out what's there for vegetation, take some temp EO information, and get you some recommendations. On some of these larger ponds, where we have to spend some time out there, we kind of tell Regan, in this case, I'm using her as an example, in Canton, yeah, we can survey it for such and such a cost, get that data, get you the recommendations, and then get an NOI filed. In some of these towns, they're filing their own. I can help with the scope, or the report we give is enough for data, and then the conservation agent, sorry, Janet, but not every town, but in some towns, the conservation agent is filing some of these NOIs to save on costs, and then they just get on a program. So some of the towns that come to mind, I mean, we do several ponds in Walpole, several ponds in Norwood, several ponds in Canton. I know Stoughton does a bunch. Peabody has like 10 ponds that they manage. And yeah, so that's basically what they do, is they get like a line item in the budget for pond management. Where those funds come from, I don't know. I stay away from municipal budgeting, but they put a line item in the budget where every year they could just keep that program going, and they essentially just get a biologist that manages their ponds to keep them healthy. Within that notice of intent. It's not like we're unlimited in what we can do, but within that scope that's been approved.
Yeah, I think Jim brings up a good point. We want to be proactive on our waterways. And it's only been the last year or two that really we're getting towards that, and where private water body owners and then the town pond, like City Mills, as they come up is like, yeah, let's come up with a plan for the town and we can manage it properly. And the one question I have is, why is the Historical Society in charge of this? It doesn't make sense to me. No offense, Barbara.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't
She
know
took
if
the
I'm one
initiative,
to
it sounds
answer that.
like.
They've just,
Yeah, but
they've
it
just
just,
always been the ones.
but it's, yeah, I mean, it clouds the issue when you've got a historic commission involved in a waterway that they don't even own it, do they? They don't own any property around
I
it.
don't think it's historical down there.
No. So really, we
No,
need to eliminate any commissions or people that don't have any right to that, to make decisions regarding that waterway. I think I would prefer that we work through DPW and the management and through our commission here to make sure it happens. But that's our problem, not yours.
Yeah, and I can tell you that, this is a rare one with the Historical Commission. Another town that comes to mind is Air, up 495. So we work with them, and everything is through conservation. So the contracts are through conservation for all the ponds. It's several ponds in town. And other towns, it is DPW.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, maybe it's because they're using CPC funds somehow, because they can't give it to us, they give it to Historical, and Historical can spend it. But I think that as we move forward, we want this to be directed through the Conservation Commission, and we can put a line item in the 22 budget, or 23 budget, I guess it will be, for management of all of our ponds that the town owns.
Yeah, I think, the first step in that process, because I think it's a great idea, just to kind of implement that town-wide pond management program is essentially just coming up with a list. I live in Northbridge, Whitensville, which is south of Worcester.
Yep.
And so, I wanted to help the town out, right? So the Conservation Commission knows who we are, and they kind of just said, hey, can you look at some of these ponds? And I said, yeah, give me a list, and we went out on a slow day and just put some kayaks on the water and surveyed them for the town, So I think first thing is coming up with a list, right? Which are the ponds that you're concerned about? Which are the ponds that are town owned or there's some vested interest in, and coming up with that list, and we can definitely get you the information you need.
Okay. Yeah, we'll work on that over the, as the year turns, and get a list to you, and we'll probably have to put it out to bid, so we'll have to send it to your competitors too. But I like your approach to things and how you've explained it. But I think, we want to formally go to a town project of handling all the waterways and maintaining the aquatic species in there. So, good information. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So, bringing it back, we have the DEP number, so we can vote on it, close it and vote on it
She's not ready yet.
next month.
I would appreciate that, sir.
She doesn't have the NOI yet, right?
Now she knows.
Okay, so we'll continue this until January, at which time we should be in a position to issue the NOI and all the paperwork to go with it. Good for you, Joe?
That's perfect. And I'll be submitting something from Eric as well coming up, I think, for the February hearing. So I'll be seeing a lot of you guys. So
Okay, but yeah, if you could
Perfect.
go out and, we'll get that list together and send it to you, just to make sure that, as we talk to you, that we have everything covered, all the waterways.
yeah, the only piece of advice there too that a lot of people don't realize is you're typically always about a year out, right?
Yeah.
So if you got me a list and said, hey, how do I fix these ponds? If we go out there in January, February, March, we're not going to see anything. We really don't know what
Right.
the challenges are, what the issues are, what to address. So typically, ponds should be surveyed at some point over the summer. There's a broad window, typically June to even in October. Now with, again, global warming, we're seeing a lot during that time frame. So typically it's year one, go out, survey, figure out what we need to do, develop a management plan, then rolls into the permitting process that fall, winter, and then you can implement that management the following year, unless there's a crazy sense of urgency or Phragmites or some of these wetland species that are managed best managed in, say, September. You know, typically those, if it was a situation like that, the time frame is a little bit different. But otherwise, you're about a year out typically from, you know, idea to making that come to life.
And I think as we put this list together, we could go back and pull some prior reports on some of the waterways and give an indication of what vegetation is there that's invasive, that needs to be taken care of. And so it'll help you when you go out there in the summer, or whoever goes out there in the summer to make the survey.
Perfect.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to continue City Mills Pond until January at 7:10.
Al Feeney, so moved.
Second?
Jim Olson, second.
Any further discussion on City Mills Pond? Seeing none, all in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, it passes. We'll pick it up in January and move forward. Thank you, Joe.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Drive safe.
Have a nice New Year.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Minutes. I think is our next item. Did we get a copy of all the minutes? Or the minutes of,
They were good. We just need to change Macarthur's NOI.
yeah.
That's it, that I saw. I read them earlier today.
Now that we got Macarthur cleared up? Is it 642 in the minutes? Yeah, bring mine. Yeah, so we need to
But I
change it to 641?
I don't know if I have the most current, because mine for Leland doesn't show a number.
Am I mistaken? I thought Macarthur was
MacArthur's 642.
642,
642.
and it
But
says
it's in the
641
meetings
in the minutes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So we need to change it in the minutes to 642.
Yep.
Okay, there's no, oh, you know why? Because that shows, no, but when she did those, they just, no, because some of the numbers we just got in, you know? So I don't think on mine for 70511 Leland, there's no number.
Now there is.
You got it now, but
in
not
the
then.
minutes.
You got it now, not then.
Yeah.
So retroactively put the number now, right? Why not? You want it?
I would think.
11 Leland. Yeah, 643.
What's 643? Oh, Leland.
Leland.
Right.
Okay, so you're gonna correct the minutes, Elaine? As marked. We'll let Janet mark up hers and give it to you.
I always have to give my stuff away. Here,
We'll print out another one
here,
for you.
just have mine. I want a clean copy.
All right, so, there's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes of November, as amended. Right?
So moved. Correct? So moved?
So moved.
Jim Olson, second.
Any other discussion on the November minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, the minutes of November are passed as done. Okay, MAC dues, that's just a formality, isn't it? You
Yeah,
take
it's
care
just,
of that?
yeah, it's just an FYI.
Yeah.
It was, for me, if I might, it's just that 2-page sheet, because for new members or old members who maybe have longer, not older,
I
anyway.
get senior
But anyway,
discounts?
the backside, no, but they have workshops, there's information,
Yeah.
I think there's an online thing to, so just so.
Yeah, you become members and stuff, so you can take part. And then there's all kinds of resources. to,
And there's all
look up.
kinds, believe me. There are.
And you are members.
And you can call,
Oh,
and
did
we
you
can
send
call
me
them and ask them for
CC?
information and stuff, so, it's,
Members, did you send their names up to MACC as new members? Okay, that will take care of that.
That was
you're
during
not
the
gonna-
transition time.
I got an email about it, so,
Oh, you did?
You got what?
I got an email about it.
From MACC? Yeah,
I'm
they
pretty
send-
sure.
Yeah, they send it out. Oh, we get them all. Gentleman, I
So
can't think of the
someone
gentleman's
sent
name.
From
Joe?
MCC?
Joey?
Maybe, he might be, yes.
Joey Wiggleworth or
Yes,
something?
Wiggle,
Oh,
Wiggle,
yes.
Wiggle, yes.
Something like that,
No,
right?
I was thinking.
I
of
get
one.
his emails like constant.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if you see some like this is a class that you need to pay for, because with, this day and age is paying online, you just could sign up, pay for it, and then give us the receipt, and then we reimburse you, so we have money to cover that for you.
I didn't know that.
Well, you're not,
Your fault.
you weren't supposed to hear that.
I was just reviewing.
Yeah. Okay, old business.
It's over.
Do we bring up 16 Valentine Drive, where we're at?
We still haven't heard from the state yet, so, nothing.
Is there any way to light a little fire or find out?
We can try.
It's winter again. This is never gonna come to head.
Well, I know, but at least if we're proactive in trying to
Oh, I
push
hate
the
it.
state
Yes,
to-
we gotta move this
Maybe they've
along.
already got their information, they just said somebody has to make them.
Before we get to this, it's gonna be woods, all grown over, and we won't know where anything is. Really?
Okay. Certificate of release for River Road. We need to what? What's regarding that?
You got those things?
What number River Road?
We're on, where is it? Yeah, 4465. Okay, so I will entertain a motion for,
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Until I saw a name here on River Road, but this is an old, it goes back to the old Norfolk Airport property.
Yep.
That became Tailwind Circle, so.
Okay, that's why I'm
this is-
asking, because I'm not familiar with this.
No, it hit a blob,
but this is good.
yeah, because it's an old order conditions that kind of got buried, so this is
Okay.
them trying to clean it up legally. I think they have a closing on the property or something.
Ah, okay. So I'll entertain a motion to, for certificate of release, which basically replaces or continues the order of conditions that have been placed since 2006, correct?
If that's what it says.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved by,
Adam Zucker, so moved.
okay, second?
Maggie Crowe, second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Wow.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes, and we'll sign it off on that one. Okay, 51 Lake Street,
Okay, and that's, I think,
240, 379, that's the McCormick property? The
Yes.
McCormick, yeah.
and I think part of it, too, there's two parcels there, because I think also attached with it is across the street,
Street.
that part of the pond, so.
That, they own both of them, don't they?
Right, and it's clearing up again old paperwork. This goes back when they put the tennis court on their
Yeah.
property. Yeah.
So we just need a motion to approve a certificate to release it?
Right, because it's old, it's expired, so it's just to clean up the deed information on the property.
Okay. Being said, I will entertain a motion for a certificate of release for 51 Lake Street. Again, for expired order of conditions.
Maggie Crowe, so moved.
Oh, goodness.
Seconded. Any-
Oh, wow.
I was all over it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. Rich McCarthy,
Hey,
you're up.
we saved the best for last, Rich.
Oh, great, thanks. So, I'm
As
back.
planned.
I'm back before you to discuss, if you recall, I think I was here in October, we talked about that the wastewater study was being presented to the planning board and then to the town for Norfolk Town Center. And one of the things that was discussed was the possibility of creating a leaching field behind Freeman Kennedy School, but also behind the Freeman Kennedy is the property that's under your care and custody of the land. And so what I'm here tonight to talk and discuss is, and ask as well, would be the ability for, well, let me back up 1 minute. So I know at the last meeting you did vote to authorize, to allow for the soccer field to go there at some point
Yeah.
from Park and Recreation, which is fine, that falls under your umbrella. However, if the land was to be utilized as a leaching field for the wastewater treatment plant, it would need to be swapped. So it would have to be converted out to do an exchange. Would have to get approval from the Conservation Commission, would have to go to town meeting for a vote, and then would have to go to the state legislature to take it out of conservation.
Do we have a map of that, Elaine? Do you have a map of the school?
If you can jump to Google, or, well, actually, we go to the town website. Go to.
Yeah, because you have one, right?
So,
Yeah,
you're saying that the plot of land that we've voted to authorize a soccer field on, if we wanted to put a leach field underneath it, we'd have to get permission from the state?
We
Well,
wouldn't
you-
want it. We wouldn't want it. We want to give it and switch out for something else.
yeah,
We want property somewhere else.
We let the town work with it.
Yes.
yeah.
They put
Yeah,
septic-
so that goes beyond, something that could be under your care and custody, a leaching field for a wastewater field. So, but I don't know yet. We have to do additional testing to see if this is viable. So discussion with town council was potentially what could be done, if you're okay with, would be to issue the town a license to go on the property to test. And then part of that licensing would be, we have to do the testing similar to what we're doing. We have to, dig a hole, perk test it. But then part of that would be restoring the land and then revegetate it for whatever was taken down. And then, once they had that done, then they could figure out whether it's suitable or not. And then the suitability would be also the area, potentially. So then I can say, okay, this works and we need an acre, then we know potentially what could be swapped. We're also gonna look at the property to the north, which is under the care, is under the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I was
That-
gonna ask about that piece of property.
That piece of property, and I've had discussions with Ann about still looking at some of the Park and Rec property as well on the site, because
Do you
if,
take possession of their land too?
no, if they move forward,
It's a power grab.
Well, I have a question.
Well, no, of course, how come our property needs to be switched out but not theirs?
they don't have the same, they're not on the same, theirs is not restricted in terms of what can be done on the property.
Got it.
But if I'm not mistaken, if we've already voted to put soccer fields there, if by chance the town did get it and puts a septic system there, those soccer fields wouldn't be able to go there now because you can't fertilize or do any kind of that on septic leach field. So now the soccer fields go away.
Yeah.
And that's my problem I have there.
Well, they could do turf.
Sure.
Yes, it would have to be artificial
They could
turf.
do
They couldn't do
artificial.
any kind of plantings or any kind of,
Which they want to do on Pond Street, so.
so that,
That could definitely go, but then
That's a
that
good point.
kind of creates the issue that I was talking about by making it grass, by increasing
the
the insect
foliage.
population and that type of stuff, which we put a turf on, is not going to do that. So,
I just want to
Yeah,
bring that
well,
up.
so that's so it's kind of a little bit of a,
well, I
kind
don't
of.
know that, based on how we kind of slanted, or I did anyway, you guys can speak for yourselves, kind of slanted using conservation land to put a field on, we sort of have the field and then a buffer with wildflowers and then the trees, so that we would get that. But if we go to turf, then That's not anywhere near what we voted for.
Right.
And on
I
the
don't
back,
know that,
We don't necessarily, so just a thought on that question in terms of where the soccer field is, we don't necessarily need to be, I mean, there's synergy to have both on top of each other, obviously, but it could be a soccer field and a leaching field next to it, so it's not,
right,
not on top of the, the soccer field is done.
but the other property you were talking about now, to go the other way, that the town, the select board owns, it used to be owned by the water department. We have town pond back there, and we also have wetlands in the front there, and a river that goes
No,
through
not
there.
that, not that.
We're not
big.
talking that piece right
No.
there where the town
No,
hall
right next
is?
to the same, right next to.
the left.
Okay,
Get that now.
all right, that's what, all right, I'm mistaken then. I'm thinking on the other side of the railroad tracks
No,
where
no, not
town
there.
hall used to be.
If you,
I just pulled up the field.
yeah, if you go to the, oh, you want me to just, I can do it real quick.
The town? What's in the town, is it?
The assessors.
Oh, okay.
I like that punch there. Which one? Take it all out. Just- Well, it's just, we just want to look at all. It's gonna switch
Yeah.
gears.
Yep.
Gears. Nice.
hey, they just grabbed us here. In a roundabout way.
I hope Aunt Proto isn't watching this show tonight. She's having
Wait till
that
all,
red line.
wait till all the little kids in their soccer cleats stand out in line in front of his office.
Probably, yeah.
Right.
Is a town property.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is that in front of the schools?
No, on the back.
The school is the piece we gave them.
The school is
Right.
here.
Where's the railroad tracks? Is this
That's a railroad
That's
track.
the railroad track.
so this is up front.
No, it's on the side. Because this is Boardman Street, right?
Okay,
And
this
so
is
this
the corner. Okay, I've got
There's
it.
the
All
corner,
right.
it's in the back.
All right, I got it.
Then there's
There's
already
a house
like an
here.
easement or
Yeah.
something there.
The school is, yeah.
All right,
But
now
that
I
was my
see.
thing, it's like, you got a 3 acre, why don't you put over here for your whole leaching
They're still
thing?
gonna have to bring, they're gonna have to bring piping and stuff. to
No,
do-
but no,
But
there's
yeah.
a 15-foot easement
Yes.
along here.
Yeah.
What's that?
Isn't the leach field doing like years, can you make it when that
Yeah.
soccer field is like, you could do it next year?
Yeah.
So it's, they don't even know how big or how long.
They have no
but-
All this to, this'll, you know.
What's that?
No.
No, it'll go faster than that. Yeah, because they want to get it to develop this town center, so they'll push it.
Yes.
I was soccer players and I hate turf, so I grass field for life.
I'll just go over to.
I know what they're trying to do.
I'm not that familiar with turf to
Well, yeah, but
know if it's,
Well, the turf field, they do have drainage.
Yeah.
do they?
Yeah.
It makes sense at the
Yeah,
end.
the piece that we're talking about, this piece here,
Is the town property, selectmen.
Okay.
yeah. So,
Could you use that instead of our land?
there's a possibility, so I don't have all those answers yet, so that's part of this next phase. This is the area that.
Go and investigate, or do
So-
your perk
So,
test.
and when I spoke to Ann Proto about it, there's a possibility, if they do the new field here, that we could do potentially a leaching field for the wastewater over here, and then restore it back afterwards on top of it, so. So that's still an option, so I'm still kind of, again, we're exploring.
Rich, you were talking, when you sit over here, we could put it over here. You're not talking on the land that we were just talking about. We're talking the land that the school already owns, right there.
The town owns.
The town.
Yeah.
The town owns,
The town,
right there.
Yeah, we're not.
Which is fields already, no?
Correct, yes.
That's fields already.
Yes.
So now my question to you would be, what would they put back on that? Would they put turf on there? Because they
It'd
wouldn't,
be field, yeah.
it would have to be
back on it,
turf.
Yeah,
Regular turf, not,
grass,
Not-
grass, not artificial.
but that goes back to fertilization, because they fertilize that.
but there would have to be an
Water.
exemption for that area where the leaching field is.
Well, people, I don't know, it's a good question, I mean,
That's all, I mean, I know we mow it and the DPW, I should say, fertilizes, it gets fertilized and everything, so I know you can't really fertilize on leach fields because of the nitrites and nitrates, and we can go on and on.
Kill it.
Well, on the leach field, why is that?
It's a DEP, I think, regulation, you can't put fertilizer on leach fields because it's, but the nitrites and nitrates in the fertilizer will perk into the,
Don't you think people, homeowners do that?
that's the new septic system, the wastewater treatment plants have to remove the nitrates and nitrates to the point where you could drink the water when it leaves it, believe it or not, so that's my
That's
own
your job.
question. I would have.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's above my pay rate right now, so.
Yeah, so I
just
would-
had that question, that's all.
So so we're still in the investigation stage, right? So all those could be into play, but the idea is, for now, is just to be able to go in, and not right now anyway, it'd be in the spring anyway, to be able to go in and do some testing to kind of figure this all out. If it turns out that the conservation piece doesn't need to be utilized, then it remains the way it is, and the soccer field goes forward. But if it does, then we have to come, we come back to have a second conversation. So
So you're looking for a approval tonight to go and test in the spring?
to do test in the spring, and it'll be done by a licensing process.
Sure.
So it would be from the commission through the town, and then I have to work with council to give you the terms of what that license
Sure.
says for your review and approval to do that.
Okay.
And how is this working in relationship to Amproto and the rec department with them going ahead and start clearing that land? And are you going in there first before that even happens?
More likely,
You know?
because I don't think she's got the budget yet.
Well, that's what I'm curious.
Yeah.
I don't know what that, if,
Yeah, I'll have to talk to her about it, but
I would think that it'd be probably more of a spring meeting because she'd use CPC funds. So it has to go through that whole process and with the budget and get
yeah,
it to
so
town
she
meeting
goes,
in May.
if we're in there and then she's after, we're not really,
yeah, well, a perk test.
wouldn't bother her.
You're looking at perk test basically,
Yeah,
right? So that's
exactly.
really not that invasive. You still gotta dig a hole, put a
Yeah.
pipe in it, but it's not.
Right,
Wait, then you cover it up.
right.
Is that the one that's got a certain date by March or something?
Yeah, so perk test opens up December 15th, until April 1st, but, so.
You have to do it in that period.
Yeah, so we could be, because the last testing we did, we weren't able to get into the high groundwaters, so we don't know what the high groundwater is yet, so that's part of what we need to be able to figure out. But I would have to get, you got to get the equipment in there, so hopefully we can do it as easily as possible, but whatever we would disturb, we'd have to replant, so eventually come back.
Sure. Lots of plywood for the equipment to go over.
Yeah.
Plywood Road. Okay, so I will entertain.
David, if I just, no, just
No,
one,
go ahead.
just one question. Do they know how big of an area they want for this wastewater treatment that they're hoping for?
That's probably the next phase of testing, that's the thing, because it depends how good the material is underneath, where the groundwater level is.
It's all sand there and
Mounding,
everything. They might not need a lot.
Yeah, if it's good material, then it will be a lot smaller. If it's not, then you gotta,
No, but is it for, expecting so much growth, so much volume that they say we need a minimum of, I can't give a number.
so
like an
the
acre or
initial,
something?
the initial report that was done last year was looking at maybe a 50,000 gallon a day system. But we don't know the leaching field size for that yet, but that was the,
You're looking at basically a half a football field, probably.
So what?
Yeah.
Half a football field is what you're probably looking at for size they'd need.
yeah, because I think if I look at the top,
Which is like how
50
big?
by 50, 50 yards.
yeah, because if you look on the top of the hill meeting house, where theirs is the 30,000 gallons a day, it's roughly
Yeah.
like 30,000 square feet for that one. There, I think it was. So anyway, that's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
How about we send it to Franklin, since he liked taking our water?
These are.
Another plunge. Boxing gloves tonight.
Yeah.
Looking up for the poor homeowners who have a boat on the ground and the dog 6 feet in the air.
Yeah.
That's all.
Why that came in your mind, I don't know. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to allow,
Planning board?
Who is it?
Who is it?
It's the town of Norfolk. I don't know who we have.
Well, that's a
Okay.
wide range, Dave.
It's coming through me. It might be this. I'm not sure, but I know it's the town of Norfolk.
Okay.
You know, when we get to the license part, you'll know who it is.
Okay, so, motion to allow the town of Norfolk, under Rich McCarthy's conservativeship, to do some testing,
Wow.
on the Conservation Commission property behind, Freeman Kennedy, and what lot number is that?
This would be 155342, isn't it? Oh, it's 22.
Where's the back one? Go ahead, point to it,
2341, yeah.
Yeah, it's 225341, right?
You got it.
That's it, yep.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
It's nice to have good eyesight.
Okay, and there's a second to that? Did somebody make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Adam Zucker, second.
The new people do it.
I saw your second.
Well, I'm close to recusing them.
Well, there's liability, you may go to jail, and so we don't want any, but we didn't tell you that.
I noticed no one said anything. I'm like, all right, throw the hat in.
No, that's fine. Any further discussion on allowing the town to go in and do some testing on that parcel? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that passes, and
Thank you.
good digging.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else that we need? What's OOC 11 Leland Road? Is that something different? No, we did that already.
Oh, that's all done.
Okay, I'm just looking at her scribbles.
All we need to do now is have a motion to, close the meeting. I'll make that motion.
You don't leave it till the end?
Oh, right.
We'll second it if you make it.
There you go.
She's on top of it.
Yes.
No.
Okay, there's been a motion to adjourn the meeting in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the meeting is closed.